Our Earth is pulsating every 26 seconds. Seismologists don't know why this is happening, but rabbis find that the rate coincides with the heartbeat of God. Discovery magazine last year posted this article. Seismologists don't know why the Earth is pulsating every 26 seconds. It's not shaking, it's pulsating. Not a lot, certainly not enough for us to feel it, but it's just enough that seismologists on various continents get a measurable little blip on their detectors. But even though this pulse has been observed for decades, researchers can't agree on why this is happening, what is causing this. The mystery surrounding the phenomenon even has its own web comic. The pulse, or microseism as it's called, microseism, a small type of quake in geological lingo, first documented in the early 1960s by a researcher named Jack Oliver at the Lamont Doherty Geological Observatory. He's best known for his later work that supplied some important early evidence of shifting tectonic plates. This is back in the 1960s. Oliver figured out that the pulse was coming from somewhere, quote, in the southern or equatorial Atlantic Ocean, unquote, and that it was stronger in the northern hemisphere's summer months or the summer hemisphere's winter. Jack didn't have the resources back in 1962 that we had in 2005. He didn't have digital seismometers, for example. He was dealing with paper records. This is what Mike Ritzwaller, seismologist, University of Colorado Boulder, whose team would independently come across the strange pulse some decades later. In 1980, Gary Holcomb, geologist USGS, looked more closely at the weird microseism, and what he figured out was that it was strongest during storms, but his and Oliver's work would mostly be lost in time while the constant seismic drumbeat would go on unnoticed under our feet. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. And then one day in 2005, then graduate student Greg Benson, working with seismic data at his lab in University of Colorado Boulder, his advisor walked in and asked him to show him what he was working on. And as Ritzwaller tells it, Benson pulled up some data, and there it was, a strong signal coming from somewhere far off. Quote, as soon as we saw this, then postdoctorate researcher Nikolai Shapiro and I recognized that there was something weird, but we had no idea what it was, Ritzwaller says. Perplexed, the team examined the blips from every possible angle. It was something wrong with their instruments, or their analysis, or this seismic activity. Was it really happening? All signs pointed to the latter. It was happening. They were even able to triangulate the pulse to its origin. A single source in the Gulf of Guinea, off the western coast of Africa. They dug up Oliver's and Holcomb's work, published in 2006. But even since then, no one has really confirmed the cause of the regular seismic activity. Though many assume it's caused by waves, some hold out that it's caused by volcanic activity. Noise all around us. Through the particular pulse, it's intriguing the fact that seismic activity during a quiet time, there's a background of subtle seismic noise all around us all the time. Seismic noise basically exists because of the sun, Ritzwaller says. The sun heats the earth more than at the equator than at the poles, which generates winds, storms, ocean currents, waves, etc. And when a wave hits a coastline, the energy is transferred to the land. But what about what the rabbis explain concerning this pulse every 26 seconds? While the pulse of Americans is running high, planet Earth throbbing every 26 seconds, we don't take notice of that. And while scientists are mystified by this beat, rabbis believe it has to do with the name of God. In October, Popular Mechanics reported, "Why is Earth pulsating every 26 seconds, and why can't scientists explain it after 60 years? This is an enigma wrapped in a periodical, predictable mystery motion. It could be a harmonic phenomena, a regular seismic chirp caused by the sun's energy, or a beacon drawing scientists to its source to begin a treasure hunt." As we said, early 1960s, geologist Jack Oliver first documented the pulse, known as the microsysm. And Oliver, working at the Columbia University Observatory at the time, heard the noise but did not have the advanced instruments to understand what was at his disposal. And now, Israel 365 News takes another look at this phenomenon, and this is what it reports. The mystery remained, and scientists ignored the microseisms until 1980, when Gary Holcomb, geologist with the U.S. Geological Survey, discovered they are strongest during storms. It was studied once again in 2006 in Geophysical Research Letters, but the cause was still unknown. Some scientists conjecture that subtle seismic activity is constantly present as a result of the sun's warming effect on the planet. But why every 26 seconds? That's like a time clock. What is happening? In 2013, graduate student Garrett Euler narrowed down the source of the pulse even more to a part of the Gulf of Guinea called the Bight of Bonny, leading him to conjecture the source was indeed the result of ocean waves hitting the coastline. But why again every 26 seconds? By the same year, a team led by Yingji Jia from the Institute of Geodesy and Geophysics in Wuhan, China, suggested that the source of the pulse was a volcano on the island of Sao Tome in the Bight of Bonny. Again, why though every 26 seconds? Both theories leave as many questions as answers. There is no dearth of volcanoes or beaches in the world, so why are the microseisms limited to that one site? Why the intervals? And why 26 seconds? And the website says, when presented with the mystery, rabbis all recognized that the 26-second phenomenon is the earth dancing out praise for its creator. The 26 seconds, they say, the 26-second duration of the microsystem pulse is explained by the gematria, that's Hebrew numerology, of God's name Yahweh, spelled out in the Hebrew letters Yod, Hech, Vav, Hech, equaling the gematria value of 26. Let me say that again. The 26-second duration of the microsystem pulse is explained by the gematria Hebrew numerology of God's name, Yahweh, spelled out by Hebrew letters Yod, Hech, Vav, Hech, equaling 26. In English, the name of God has been transliterated to Yahweh, meaning often rendered as I am, which carries the value of 26. Rabbi Lazer Brody is an American-born Hasidic rabbi, and he teaches on the Lazar Beams blog. He says that the 26 pulse of Earth is inspiring, of course. It's not coincidence that it's the gematria value of God's name, title. There are some secrets, he says, places where we can discover Hashem, God, literally the name. Brody told Israel 365 News, he says, I focus on simple faith and science is just a different part of that, he said. And that is again echoed by Rabbi Shlomo Katz of the congregation Shirat David in Efrat in Israel. Katz says, it is very consoling. In these last stages before the Golet final redemption, it is clearly important to be in tune, even literally, with the planet. Being religious, being close to Hashem is much more than just what goes on in church or synagogue or what you read in a book. We need to be sensitive to the quest, to nature, to see how the entire world fits into God's plan. Science and nature have to be part of our conversation with God. He says, God, could have made the world in an infinite number of ways, but here we see that every detail is for his glory. And Rabbi Shaul Judelman, former director of Ecology Beit Midrash, said the Bible itself actually refers to what he called the earth dancing for the name. Why mountains did you skip like rams? Why hills like lambs? Tremble, O earth, at the presence of God, at the presence of the God of Jacob. This is in Psalms 114, verse 6 and 7. The sages were careful observers of nature, and that was where they discovered God, Judelman says. He says they were very much in the world. Back then, that was science, observing nature and trying to understand it. There was no conflict between faith and science, absolutely the opposite. They complemented each other, delving into the world, nature, and how it works, revealing more of God. But we have fallen into the space where we think we have to destroy science to protect faith or destroy faith to advance science. That's not so, and in fact we need both sides in order to grow and move towards final redemption, he said. This is from Joe Kovacs on WND and also on Discovery magazine. I'll leave links below for you for this. I think this is really fascinating. It's just amazing. The unlocking of secrets having to do with our Bible and, of course, science. Please leave your comments about this. Thank you for your support.